Welcome to another episode of the Build Groups podcast. My name is Adam Erlichman, your host. Very, very excited for you guys to get to tune in for this episode. We have a great guest with us today. I'll allow Bill to introduce himself in just a minute. But as you all well know, this is a podcast where we don't seek to answer all your questions. We're here to spark, start, and spur on some good thought trail so you can begin asking questions that you otherwise wouldn't have if you didn't listen to this episode. And here's what I know is that there are decades of experience that our guest, Bill Donahue, brings to the table, brings to the conversation that you will probably go, I've never thought about this or thought this thing, and I didn't know. And you're going to come away feeling very, well, first of all, well-informed, I think. You're going to feel better equipped, and any promises that are unfulfilled, you can talk to Bill about that, not me.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was just thinking he really set me up there. That's great. So you just get everything you ever wanted, and if you don't, it's his fault. So
yeah, make a wish, guys. Right. So, Bill, would you introduce yourself just a little bit so our audience knows more about you?
Yeah. So I grew up in Philadelphia and East Coast, and went to to schools out there, and became a Christian in the college years, where I was at Princeton. Sort of got explained to me several times, and a few times forcefully by some people, but it planted some seeds. And so from the trail after that, I went on to work in the marketplace for P&G and the bank. And in that era, it really hit me, that I needed Christ. I wanted to follow Christ. And my fantastic statement on a Christmas Eve service was looking up at Jesus with the lamb on his shoulder on the stained glass window. And I said, I'm yours. That was as dramatic as it gets. I don't remember anyone telling me to say any particular thing, but I just felt like that. But anyway, that was sort of my Christian, turn there. But grew up in the city, not deep city, but just a city of Philly, and got a lot of background from that. And 20 boys on the street. Fights happened.
Oh, yeah. The city of brotherly love, right?
Yes. Yeah, real quick story on that. People came to a conference I was at. I was doing some teaching. They came up to me afterwards, said, heard you're from Philadelphia. And they said, well, we were in Philadelphia, and we were driving down I-95, and there was this great banner that said, Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. And we took a shot of it. Now, this story goes back some years because they had to go develop the film. I got the film back underneath the billboard, about 20 feet back. Two guys are punching each other and literally having a fight. And above it says this logo. So, yeah, that's kind of how it is around there. So, but speed things up a little later, moved to the suburban area of Philly, and I mentioned college and some grad school or some job stuff. Wound up in grad school and decided I really wanted to go to seminary to serve God in some way. Not that I didn't at the bank, because we had a great group of people there who were believers, but it was a sense that was on me, that I wanted to get something more training. And I was doing some stuff, some teaching and more. And people said, you need to get some training there. And I said, I don't know if I want to be a pastor. Not that that's bad. I just never felt that call. But I had some education background, my PhD's in that, and this sense of training people and helping people grow and that kind of thing was really in my heart. So that kind of took off through the years into, I don't know how far you want me to go, but I can go to the present day. I'll be quicker, but wound up meeting my wife, having our first son in Dallas, and we moved up to Willow Creek, where I was on staff at both the church and the Willow Creek Association at the time. It's now the Global Leadership Network. But and that really launched me into really a focus on group life. I had been involved in some groups. I hadn't done well in groups. And so I never thought, this is God's humor. The first group I led was best friends. And by the fourth week, I had grown the group from 4 people to 1. That's why I like to set that up, because no one showed up at my house, and these are best friends I played football with. I thought something's wrong here. So I learned a lot in that moment. And I learned that A, I needed training, but B, there was something more to this. And we'll talk about some of that, I think, today, than just getting people in a circle and answering some questions. And hoping that works. And if they're thirsty, go to the sink in the kitchen. There should be a class there. So hospitality is my gift.
Yeah.
But it wound up being more and more one of those things where when I got in a good group, I said, wow, this is what these things are supposed to be like. And in the church I was at in Dallas, where I met my wife, she was attending there. That sense of passion around that started to grow, wanting to be connecting people together in transformational relationships. And that just took off from there to more formal positions. I mentioned Willow, and got a chance through the Willow Creek Association to help other churches in this country, of course, and then around the world, which was a gift to be able to do. And so right now I do mostly helping with churches and consulting, some things like this, some coaching and helping people make the next steps. And it's got a couple of kids. There are 36 and one that just turned 30. So we celebrated that. So
awesome.
There you go. That's a little bit
awesome.
enough.
We have a lot in common, because I'm from the Philadelphia area.
Right, yeah.
And my wife is from Dallas, Texas as well.
Right. Well, my wife originally was born in Ecuador, and 2 years later moved to Venezuela for 7 years. Her father worked for the State Department as a civilian, working in Defense Mapping Agency, mapping stuff.
Okay.
And they traveled a bit, not a lot, but then she wound up being in Panama Canal area in Panama. And that's where she finished most of her school, and then went to the States, went to Baylor, and went to grad school for speech pathology. And that was up at Southern Methodist, SMU. Yeah. And then she wound up in Dallas for a job, and through a couple of things, IBM. And while she was working at IBM and I was coming on staff with the church there just the pastor said, hey, would you help? Yeah, with small groups. And one thing led to another. We wound up being on staff there. So it was Fellowship Bible Church of the Park Cities in Dallas. So fond memories.
Wow.
So Dallas.
Yeah. She got some of the Dallas DNA, probably rubbed rights there. So that's cool. I'm in the SMU area multiple times a week for my son. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. And wow. But here's the most important question I probably hadn't asked yet. So I got 2 follow-up questions on that. One, are you a Phillies fan?
Yes. But don't ask me to name too many people right now, because I've been in Chicago for a long time. And if you're in Chicago, you have to be north side or south side. You have to choose. Yeah. South side is Sox. I'm sorry, I can't go there. So I've been a Cubbies fan. But when they play the Phils, it's tough. I can't lose. So it works.
Yeah.
But it's Phillies. It's definitely a Phillies fan.
Unless you're a Sox fan, then you lose. So
that's one important question.
That's one. Second, what's a hobby? Like, what's a hobby that you enjoy doing? Maybe outside of all the ministry you've done. Yeah, all the rest of life. Yeah.
So when I was in college, I picked up the guitar kind of from a roommate who was terrible playing around with it. And he just handed it to me. He said, looks like you're picking it up. And he gave it to me. It was a little catgut, whatever you call it, string kind of acoustic. And I think I tried to learn, read the books, play any song with 3 chords kind of thing. But I really fell in love with it and went home for, I think, a Christmas or a birthday. And my brother had gotten me a real one, like a nice one, steel string guitar. So I had an acoustic. I later grew into having an electric guitar. So I enjoy that. So it's a Fender Strat, and it's got a nice little pedal board, switchboard. So I get to mess around with some sounds and pretend I'm a rock star. I really don't read music. I did when I played the trumpet in 5th grade, but since then I pretty much just Google stuff and figure it out, and off we go. So, but that's my hobby. But it's fun because we have a basement bedroom and stuff down there. We keep it down there because I can go down there and either use headphones or not. It's just slam and jam. So because of his influence, who gave me the first guitar, I grew up learning, songs from the 70s mostly. Okay. Yeah. So I'd be in youth group stuff, and they'd say, "Do you know, Rock of Ages?" No, but I do know It's a Long Way Home.
I know a lot of rock songs.
Yeah, right. A good Led Zeppelin or something if you're up for that. Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway, but that's a fun hobby for me.
Man, I love it. Well, one of the things that, moving into more of the conversation
Yeah,
in,
sure.
the small group space and what we talk a lot about in this podcast is you have a book that you published and you have a new edition
Hmm.
coming out. And I actually have one of the first copies,
Yes, you
it
do.
looks like,
Hot off
right,
the press.
right here, hot. It's still warm. It's just, and that's saying something 'cause it's usually warm in Texas, nice and cool here.
I pushed them to get it to you and to where we are here and all that. And, we were pushing on the deadline and they made it. And that was great. It was a little earlier than normal, but I was pleased. And yeah, so
Perfect. Right here in time for the lobby conference
exactly.
and Saddleback Ranch. This is perfect. So, I want to ask you some questions because
Sure.
one of the things I think is, as you well know, with those who are in the small groups ministry, having practical tools that they can take, hand off, use, refer back
Yeah.
to, field guides, if you will.
Hmm.
That is some of the most valuable things that they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
More than the podcast, more than hearing from you or you going to speak or someone, or
Sure.
it's like this goes on far further. So I'd like to talk about this
Yeah. Fine.
and ask questions.
I was hoping you would do that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we got the memo. It's perfect. So the first question I want to ask you, this is 30th anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this has been effective and helping and equipping for a long time. How did the new edition, like, how did all that come about?
Yeah.
Like,
So my little story. So the third edition is part of a three uh, book set or manual set. One's for small group pastors, one's for people that coach small group leaders, and one is for small group leaders. And it's the small group leaders one. This one we're talking about. The previous version, title a little different, basically the same thing, was read, and we were joking around one night at the dinner table. My son said, let's get off the boring questions of, so what was your day like? And then he kind of joked and said, well, mom always goes to your book to find icebreakers. There's like 3 or 4, discussion questions and engagement things and fun stuff to do and serious questions. And so he's opened it up and he was flipping around. And he turned to the front. And he said, when did you write this? And I gave him the date and he says, okay, but this is the 3rd edition. So when did you first write it? And when I told him, he said, Dad, this 30 years. And you ought to go talk to them about having an anniversary edition and get a big push and all this. And at first I just sort of chuckled. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, gosh, we learned a lot. I've learned a lot. The movement has learned a lot. And while this book isn't targeted at small group pastors, there's stuff plenty in there for small group pastors and those who lead small group ministry and those who lead small groups, of course. So that just got the things cooking and Harper said, let's do it. And off we went. So.
Well, on the back and the bottom of this, it says there's more than 250,000 copies in print.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is well worth the 30th year.
I didn't know that. And I will confess one time I said 350. Sorry. It was a little high. I was really excited in the moment or something. I don't know. It's a bit of surprise because it had a good takeoff many years ago, but as many things do, they kind of just sort of trickle along.
Right.
And Donovan said to me back in the day, yours just goes consistently. It's not a big thing. It's in a splash every year, but I think what churches are doing is they get some new leaders in. They go, oh, we need to get another 5 or another 10 or whatever they have.
Yeah.
And that kept that steadiness sort of going. And it was kind of a shock to all of us. So, and I consider an honor that it would have that sort of running time and to, again, capture what we can in the new version, some things that weren't in before, obviously, learning we've had, about groups, about how to lead them, how to build them, that kind of thing. So there's that in there, and there's some of the sort of staples are in there. So as I kind of use as an illustration, it's like baseball. You got to be able to run, throw, hit, and catch. If you can only do 2 of those or something, you probably can't play very well. And small groups has its things you need to be able to do. Have a good discussion, some scripture, pray together, the 3 or 5 things that if you put a group of people together and give them some guidance, there's some sort of, yeah, okay, we sort of get that, but here's what's happening in my group. What do you do with that? And what if it's not just run, hit, catch, throw? What if it's some other things? And so we made sure I and the group publishing it with me, that we were hitting a lot of topics that people who would be leading groups moving forward might be able to really use in their ministries, and their pastors could lead them with it and so on. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So before we start getting into some of the great practical tools that are in here, because there's some great ones and questions that I've written out here, I got that I know are just great hot topic issues or challenges that small group pastors facing. Like, hey, what do I do with my group leader? What do I do there? How do I help this? We've got that. But before we get to that 30th year edition, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to you reference early on in the book the Trinity, right? Back into Genesis, back to eternity,
Right.
Past of the Trinity being the first small group.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, and that's a phrase from a community and passion professor I had and worked more alongside of about 20 years or more ago.
Okay.
And he used that term. And I said, I love that. It's the first small group course as a small groups person. And I had taught on it, but the idea of putting them together and saying, really it is. It's the first thing. We don't know of a God that is not triune. And so sometimes we grew up with an image of Gandalf, or something like that, or some person. It was often always a male. It was always an older person. I guess he had a rough time. But there were some images of what we got as our image of God, and it was always singular. And that's because of, references to God that way in the Bible. We get that. But it seemed to be a limiting factor that God could not be sort of this communal God to most people. They maybe knew and had heard of it, but not really explored it, and not seen their group in light of that. Saying, this circle we have is a mirror image of what Father, Son, and Spirit are trying to accommodate and do and flush out into the world, and sending Jesus to model, and the Spirit to empower, and the Father to say, this is how I want to build my church. It's going to be on gatherings. And they're not always small. We have larger ones. But that sense of a group of people coming together in the power and love and passion of the Trinity, just said, that's a group. That's a group that's functioning with that kind of culture. And I've read a lot about, community with respect to small groups, largely from, some of these mentors. So yeah, that's kind of how it got going for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then to even take that the step further of Imago Dei, or
Exactly.
made in his image,
This
right?
this is how God shows and expresses himself, and this is how the group is the image of God, Father, Son, and Spirit, in the way we live out and flesh out the truth of Scripture, and the way we let the Holy Spirit guide us in our lives and so on. Yeah, it's this is the stamp. You look on it and say, this is what God intended. So the way I used to think about it was sort of, there's this theology that you're mentioning about God. It is God is Father, Son, Spirit. And then there's sort of philosophical thinking. Well, if there's that triunity, what does that mean for how theology is lived out in a philosophy of ministry in a church or in a group? But typically it's talked about in a church. And this idea of relationships, oh yeah, well, they must have roots in that. And, serving together and having impact in a community. And I always used to say, when God wants to reach a community, he builds a community first. Sometimes he picks one person, but pretty soon he starts bringing folks around.
Wow.
Jesus, Mark 3:14, he chose the 12 that they would be with him, and he would send them out to preach and teach and so on. So the first part was the be with factor. It doesn't mean they didn't do anything, but it was built off of that image of God of being triune, and living that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have this DNA that's in us that, in a sense, craves community.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's who we are, made in the image of God. but yeah, we have this loneliness epidemic, right, in our country, and
Yeah.
COVID. I don't think it. I mean, it caused it in certain ways, but I think it just exposed it maybe more.
Yeah.
There's
It's kind of lit it up. Yeah.
a lot of stats out there, but in regard to the loneliness crisis and the church's response, you speak to that in here. Can you touch on that a little bit of just, what should that response look like, and how do groups play a role in that?
Yeah. It's interesting how isolated we are, and that's not really news. And some of that we pursued, some of that we celebrated with technology, and some other things allowed us to do things away from others. It didn't require always to be with others. And the problem with that is you created this, and we would hear stories through the years, pre-hyper technology age, of, police going into an apartment, the neighboring apartment, called on the phone, there was a bad smell coming out or something like that. And it had been for a while, and they just wondered what was happening, that someone should check. And it'd be a person who had passed for like months almost. And there was no relationship whatsoever, no connection. No one missed them. And I think that's such a sad thing that I think of it as sometimes as no one misses them. That's such a sad thing. Oh, was so-and-so absent last week from whatever? Oh, they didn't show up. Oh, I didn't notice. To not be noticed is such a painful thing. And I think that leads into that loneliness epidemic, if you will, of people not willing maybe to do the work to build that kind of relationship, or,
Sure.
yeah, just, so I rode a plane today, and there was nothing major, but someone clearly needed some help, and that person was me. The air conditioning or something broke, and it went on like really high, and it was freezing everyone, and people were trying to put things on and do all this stuff. And I couldn't find enough to put on me. And I know I was kind of doing this and doing that. And I realized, and this isn't a judgment on people, it's just we went 2.5 hours easily like that. And no one came up to me. No one said anything except one of the attendants. And he actually laughed. He goes, "It's still cold in here, isn't it?" And I was like, I'm not smiling. I was just like, I would love some relief. But nobody sitting behind me or around me. I was aware that no one said, "Oh, my jacket's up there," because I wore some really light thing. And if that would help you or anything, or to anyone else. And everybody was honed in on what they were working on or reading. And I get some of that. The plane's not the best place to, but it's just another picture of many of this, either having to do it alone, being told it's better to do it alone. Sometimes, sometimes it's almost a recruiting kind of thing that you won't need us, you'll have this piece of technology, or you'll have this knowledge, and you won't really need to lean in. So I think it's been hurtful and harmful, and COVID, like you said, sort of accelerated it, or maybe shown the light on it. But we had a theme going around our church for a while. No one lives alone. No one serves alone. No one grows up alone. No one shares the faith alone. It was this idea that, yes, you can do some of those alone, but the power of the Spirit of God, this innate DNA community, instead doing that with you, is such a more powerful thing, and such a more wonderful thing, not to be doing it on your own. So,
Yes. Yeah. That the power in the community and the brotherhood, sister. I mean, locking arms, going in together.
yeah, there's a
That
big
you're
trading of
noticed, you're
touch.
seen.
Physicians talk about it. They talk about healing of patients who have people around them. It's better to have people around you and smoke than it is to not have people around you and not smoke, in the sense of if you have a certain disease, because there's something that touch and community does to bring healing. And that shouldn't surprise us. Salvation, the word means save, but it also means heal, sozo, and that the word soteriology and all come from that. But that sense of a healing that comes, and that salvation is both individual and corporate. It's communal.
Yeah.
And it happens because many things are happening at the same time, with the Trinity at work, with others in
Yeah.
your life as work, with the scriptures at work, and so on. Yeah.
But what's important, and you all heard it from Bill, if you're in community, you're allowed to smoke.
That's exactly.
That was the key takeaway, right? No?
Yeah. And if you really want to live a big stogie, it would be great. So,
That is not the key takeaway, but
yeah.
but the point
That's
is
been shared more broadly. That's not
Yeah.
something I, just read last week, but I
Right,
always think
right.
of it. I remember it, that it's that
it's yeah.
little data points like that pop up every once in a while.
We all saw the videos of people from COVID where they just embraced for the first time, and even like little 3-4-year-old kids are crying because it's the first time they're seeing their friend or touch. It just but one of the harder parts on a different subject, when you get these groups going, you have group leaders leading, and you have community building and happening.
Mhm.
Everything perceivably can be going really, really well.
Yeah.
The group thriving. But I think anyone who's led groups for a bit of time has kind of experienced some of this, maybe with a group leader, where you have a chapter on forging leadership. It gets honest about having the wrong motives, leading for self-promotion, prestige, or because of peer pressure from others. What's the most common unhealthy motive you see in small group leaders, and how do you have that conversation with them
Yeah.
without like crushing them?
Sure. And there can be lots of causes or triggers that kind of set that off. I'm wondering if some of you that are listening are um, seeing, for example, you may have been in a church that shifted towards small groups as being more, the heartbeat of the church. I know that's true in a couple of places I was. Maybe you had groups, but it wasn't the sort of one of the main areas of discipleship. We had other
Sure.
kinds of groups maybe, and certainly there were classes and there were things going on. But when this got to be, I got to start over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
27. Yeah. Go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Well, what I piggybacked off what you said. You introed the question.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to start from the beginning?
Yeah. You want me to ask the question again?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I can get it to it faster, I think.
All right. You ready?
Leadership motives, right?
Yeah. Leadership motives.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
And I know what I want to say. Yeah.
What's the most common unhealthy motive you see in small group leaders, and how do you have that conversation with someone without crushing them?
Probably because, it's here in a lot of us is pride, the sense that I now have this position or this role, and it's, my job is to provide answers, support. It's sort of to show up and do everything. And some of that's pride. Some of that's, I don't think everybody has a strong narcissism about it. I think they think it's their job to rescue and do that, and not so much to draw the group in and do that. So I think it's leaning into the illusion that everything rests on my shoulders to get done, and I'm the most competent to do it because I've got training, I've got a manual, I've got this, I've got that. And
I'm in charge.
Yeah, and I'm in charge. And it's not always that humility that drives it, or that sense of servanthood shared, or even shared leadership or other things. So I think some of the motives are around that. One I was thinking of was when church transitions from one model to another. And in the 90s and 2000s and beyond, there was a lot of movement toward having more groups, or groups being at the core. You've heard some churches maybe say, well, we do big things on the weekend and we do small things during the week. And so if you're, you should be here on the weekend worshiping with us, and you should be connected to a group. That's mainly the thing. We don't have 12 classes over here for you to join. We start with a group, that kind of thing. And once people get this sense of the real ministry's happening in groups, and then they say, oh, and so if they have a teaching gift, they bring that to the group. Groups are not designed to be teaching centers unless very specifically designed in certain training, but they're not supposed to be for that. They're supposed to be engaging in conversation, right, and all of that. But the action is there. So I'm going to take my gifts and show up over there. And I think that can happen. It can kind of be the thing to do. And I think it's leaders can slip into it, realizing now I'm where the action is, maybe even subtly, not really thinking about it. Because guess what? The small group leaders have a conference. The small group leaders have training. The small group leaders get handed books, for free. And they don't do that in the XYZ ministry or some other things in the church. So I think it sometimes can just be that this is really the church. And we might argue sometimes we may have caused that, we who promote it, by saying, that's where Jesus started with this little group. And I mentioned a few comments about this before. And even when, anyway, he's focused a lot around that topic and around his 12. And I think it's very easy to get swept up into that's the deal. So,
and there's these temptations, even though the group's going well,
mm-hmm.
the leader might not be doing well
Mm-hmm.
because it might be feeding their glory more than God's glory.
Yeah, and that's what happens. They start slipping into some things around that. Maybe they, again, being the answer person, maybe in that sense of intervening when they don't need to intervene, trying to fix everything. And the thing is, what is it that makes them feel better? Oh, good, the Smiths aren't, at it again this week. Maybe it's not bad. I'm not talking about.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Maybe it's not too bad. It's just that sense of, we feel good because of that or whatever. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the motive being, I fixed something. It's no longer barking at me, or not so much. Did we build a relationship further there? Did we engage further? Did we really help? Maybe as a group surround this couple who's had some struggles with some things, and maybe they had a struggle with a child that caused, maybe grave health issues, and that can sometimes affect a family and that kind of thing. And it's, some of those kinds of feelings and thoughts, and it just starts to get to be, again, when I look and feel like whatever it was is kind of fixed now, or it's not the big thing, we kind of move on. And I think that's another thing, a motive of fixing things. If my group goes through, we have a nice meeting, we answer the questions, there's no conflict, there's no discussion that may be a little hard to swallow or whatever. And we started on time and we ended on time. And, and there is a sense of, because sometimes it's good to have one of those when you've had a bunch of, maybe, but it's that sense of, I think we're doing great. And it's not that you're doing horrible, but maybe your measuring line is different. Yeah.
I think one of the ways, and you can, confirm or disagree or either way, but I think one of the ways that helps a group leader to avoid that temptation of the self-glory or self-promotion or the prestige, it's to have an apprentice, someone that they are raising up, they're investing into, to potentially help lead the group, share with the group, or go start another group.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You might even be as bold to say, like, we used to have some of these at our church. We called them a group planter. They weren't a group leader. They'd go in, start a new group, and then they go to the next group and plant the next group, and then plant the next. They get the co-leader apprentice raised up. And I know you talk about that, and you're pretty direct on the point that no one leads alone, and that developing an apprentice isn't optional, right?
Yeah.
This is a biblical mandate. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that may sound a little too pressy, but it's more the sense of the model or pattern in Scripture. It's not, there's a sense of it's a mandate by modeling an example. What's Paul do? He doesn't set up Paul ministries and start running around doing his own stuff. He has people around him, and pretty soon he has, women, and he has other parts of churches, Priscilla and Aquila, he's making tents, to earn money. He meets them and apparently leads them to faith and grows them up. And then he says, I'm out of here. You stay here in Ephesus and lead the church. And they're like, excuse me? But they've apprenticed under him, maybe some without knowing it. But, it's that kind of thing, getting experience under an experienced leader and being able to give feedback to one another on how things are going. And that process that apprenticing happens in a lot of fields, in the trades especially. Anything where you have to produce something that you can measure or that's supposed to happen, that idea of helping someone else do that, or if you need to move, as you mentioned, or you need to go because you're going to lead a different kind of group, maybe you're going to lead one with this apprentice. So, yeah, yeah, sharing leadership, empowering future and the next sort of level of leaders to come up. Yeah, it's a really important thing.
What's like a first next step you'd encourage a small group leader right now to take? They could start next week to get an apprentice relationship going, to
Yeah,
identify someone, start
sure.
apprenticing them, to prepare them, something that they could real practically, maybe start doing that, say next week.
Yeah. So I've done a couple different things, but one that sticks out, and one was from one of our leaders. I said, you've been really good at raising up apprentices. How are you identifying people who could be, whether they're through relationships or they're right there in your group or whatever? And he said, most of the effort's been from prayer. And I remember saying, okay, so like, but what did you do when you, like, right,
That's
that kind of
great.
thing.
That's so good.
And
Now,
then he looked at me with a little smirk and he went, Bill, I would say for me, and not everybody, but it's prayer. I start praying and asking God to help me see what others don't see in people and to help me see the opportunity someone might have to come alongside of me or to one of my leaders. And then the second thing is I just said the word is opportunity. It doesn't have to be throwing someone into a role, right? It's like in a lot of places, you're backup player first, or you're a substitute and you're learning to do things. And what we say to people in our model, and I think it's been effective, is that I'd like you to come alongside me as kind of a co-leader for a season. I think one day maybe you could lead a group. I don't know yet. And I don't want to scare you, and we're not pushing you into anything. But I think it would be, I know I could use the help to get feedback, to see how the group is going, maybe to help lead it in things like, hey, let's come up with a really exciting and engaging question that will draw people in and get them thinking. And you and I can just make a call this week or shoot some text back and forth on some ideas. And why don't you just kick it off and say, that we were talking about this. So here's what we think would be a great question. And then after the meeting's over, do a little debrief, not long, just a little quick. So how'd you feel doing that? And what was that like? And how did you feel the group responded? I'd like to share some thoughts I have, but I want to hear from you. How do you feel you did, with that and so on? And so you start to give people a little more ownership along the way.
yeah.
And so I think one of the first things to do is, who is it that could take a step of ownership of the group, not just participation in the group? So it's a
Mhm.
philosophical change. It's like, I am now helping lead this group with Susan or Mike or whoever. And therefore I feel a little more weight, a little more responsibility because I'm getting to share on how it's shaped. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's important that happens. And in some cases it is to be intentional and do the direct ask. Again, not a pushy. But I remember asking a couple to join our couples group and saying, reason one in the group, reason two, I'd love to see you lead someday. So I'd like to treat you as an apprentice over time. But I want you to know coming in, I think you'd be great leading another couples group because I see the relationships you have with people and especially in the 20s. And, we've got a lot of groups on the other end and they were open to the idea. And eventually they did. They broke out and launched a group. So, sometimes you just got to ask, I guess. Yeah. But not push. Yeah.
Right. Draw them in, pull them
Yeah.
in, let them just see, well, what is this like? And
Yeah. And
yeah,
remember, they'll have the same responses as the apostles in some cases, not because they're apostles, but that sense of, oh, I don't know, or Moses, the 7 reasons why you shouldn't be even thinking about leadership. And just to be relaxed and go, well, we're just going to go a step at a time. Yeah. So
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You were saying you had to talk
Yeah.
to me. Yeah.
No, that was exactly it. That when you have these new leaders come in, I think some of them are a bit concerned and maybe even a little bit fearful that if they do take up that mantle of leadership and they say, hey, I'm going to be the leader, that inevitably some conflict is going to occur in their group.
Yeah. Right.
And for them, that's like a massive deterrent.
Right.
Like,
Super fear.
oh man, what happens if we get into conflict or there's conflict and or someone's upset at me or they're upset at those people.
Yeah.
You've got a whole chapter on how to
Right.
step in, how to help resolve conflict. What sort of advice would you give to a new leader on the subject of just resolving the conflict or handling that? What would you say?
Yeah, and we do in the book. I list a couple different approaches that I've learned from others,
Mhm.
in the sense of at least certain parts of that discussion, or even a model to do it. But I think a couple things are important, and one of those is, and you hear this about a lot of things about leadership, but I think it's just a truth principle, and it's that we should name reality in a situation.
Mm.
Don't pretend something's not there. Don't pretend something's working when it's not. So I think one of these first principles is what's going on. So if we have this sense of the group's not working, or I'm not working, or people are getting angry, or there's a couple folks in the group banging up against each other, before making judgments and passing judgments and forming sides, kind of, and the group starts to break into two, just the way things are happening. It's like, do we even know what's going on?
Mhm.
So I have a psychologist friend who trained me in a way, and I helped train some others. And I don't mean it like I'm using it super regularly, but he uses it a lot, I think, in his practice. But it's a little bit of a square thing that you walk around, and basically the first box is data or information.
Okay.
Like, so what's here? What do we have? Who said what? Or who's doing what or not doing something? And we can't just assume someone's opinion. Let's just, okay, does everyone agree that this is sort of the situation? And so you have that, and then you can make a judgment at some level of maybe not a judgment like a final judgment, more of a sense of, instead of just leaping to, oh, I know what's going on here, either within the group or someone observing it. And a leader will be observing some things, and we say, oh, I think I know what's going on over there. Maybe not. So, but at least from the process standpoint, it's not until you have some data information. What's really, what do we know? And then, what can we judge from this as far as what's reality? And then how does it affect us emotionally? What does this action that we agree is happening and these feelings we're having about it, what's it do to our group? And let's just name that. What's it do to ourselves first?
Mm.
And it's not that the people are bad that are having some tension. We all have tension, and anger arises and so on. It's that we're not processing it and talking about it.
Yeah.
And then what's my responsibility in it? Do I have a responsibility? So in a one-on-one, that would fit really nicely for each person to say, well, yeah, I agree. I really blew off last time we were together. So I got to own that. It's just sort of, I'll take responsibility for not that or whatever. But I think it'd be done to group level, just the standpoint of, if this has been affecting the group, that's the data. How's it been affecting the group? How is it emotionally? Well, it's sad because I love you guys, and doesn't sound like we're processing this real well. And then oh, okay, good. We have something to work with here,
Right.
and then eventually get to what he said is, what do you want? We've walked around the circle, so to speak. We've named things. We've felt emotions. We've made some judgments. We feel like we kind of know what's going on, but what is it really that we as a group want, or is it individuals or whatever? But then it rises up in the group. We process it. What is it we think we want? What is a win for us? And let's talk about that. Now, I know that sounds we're doing it here real tight, but it can be a process that can be worked out over time. It could be done in shorter groups, connecting with people with 2 or 3, and then bringing it up again at the meeting and say, hey, I've been great to be able to talk to some of you about the tension we're feeling here. And some of it was around, it turns out it was a lot about how much, we didn't think it was this, but it was a lot about maybe how much Bible, we're using. We've been doing more life stories and things like that. So that we all kind of went, we think we probably need to address that. Oh, good. Okay. So you have a process, you have a way to deal with it, and then together, let's work it through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And,
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
And that tool's in your book, right?
The Foursquare one is not. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. But you have.
But the components of it are in there. I did draw.
Right.
We did.
But the approach, you
Yeah.
said you have
Yeah.
three ways to kind of approach that, right? That would be
Right.
helpful of how to resolve the conflict.
Yeah, right.
That's
So
good.
yeah, they're in there including whether you use it. And from other psychologists and people, and Dan Allender, and so there are folks like that.
The next edition, it's going to have to be.
Yeah, it's going to have to be. It didn't make all of it, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just thinking, if you back up, it's like process and then some kind of framework to work together. And
What we'll do is
Yeah.
we'll get, if you can send us some info on that, or even just maybe if there's some PDF or something out there that
Yeah,
they
I
could
have it. I
reference,
can send it to you.
we can put it in the show notes. So if
He
you're
calls it 4 squares, so it's not real complicated. Yeah.
yeah. So if you can draw a square, guys, all right, you should be able to figure this. All right, but this is how easy it is to resolve conflict. But we'll put in the show notes and we can hyperlink it so they can do that. So we'll take care of that. The last question I want to ask you, and this is, I think, if it's like, hey, of all the things in the book, of your experience, which it's like, wow, it's a lot to just put into a precise like one thought. There's a lot of things that leaders get wrong. There's a lot of things that small group leaders, they get wrong and they mess up. I think, we've done this long enough. You've done it way longer than I've done it, but you see patterns of common mistakes that occur as the small group leader is facilitating leading group. What is one shift that you believe would make their group truly life-changing? What would you say to a group leader who common mistakes based off of what you've seen? What's maybe one thing you would tell them to shift and change?
So I bring it right out of what we have at the beginning of the book on John 17. Yes, it's about Jesus's prayer for what he wants to see as a community. And he says, I want you to have the same. He finally turns his prayer from personal to about the group. And he says, I want them to have the joy you and I have. Now he's going to the cross and ours, and yet he says that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's joy, not happiness, but still, he says, I want you to have the truth. He says, I want them to have the truth that you and I share, and I want them to learn that. And he just goes right down John 17, and he names all the things, or the Bible goes right down John 17 as what Jesus is saying there as he prays for them right before going to the cross. I want them to have the glory that you and I have. I want them, and he names 7 or 8. And he gets to the end and he says, and this is the thing I'm getting to, the one thing. And he says, and I want them to have the love that you and I have. It's what he started in the upper room with in John 13. If you have a red letter Bible, it starts red there and it ends at the end of John 17. And he has mentioned through his teaching there, they'll know you're Christians, by your love.
Yeah.
They will, a new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you. That's what's new, right? So I think at the end of the day, Jesus always comes back around to love. And and you put an exclamation point or a period there, and not saying that in just a quickie way, but the sense of, I know, Lord, I need to learn to love these people as their leader. When you love people, you listen better. When you love people, you learn more. When you love people, you want to serve together. When you love people, you forgive people. There's so many things that when true love starts to show up, and modeling that and doing it as a group leader, it's hard. But I think people will find the culture of love emerge as a result of that.
That's good. Yeah, if there was one thing, I think you hit the bullseye, Bill. It's
hard not to go too off with that, but yeah, he turns a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there was a woman one time, she was going through group leader training stuff with us, and she was very concerned. She said, I think there's just better people out there. I don't think I'm going to be good. And essentially came to, I'm just afraid I'm going to fail. And although that is always a possibility, it's like so overwhelming to think about all the things, and just boiling it down to, let's just love people.
Yeah.
Well.
Right.
And going, if I can do that,
yeah,
I don't think I can fail.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it may seem trite to people, like, well, we can always say that, but at the end of the day, it's real, right? You saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on to the Build Groups podcast. Audience, I know you enjoyed that. That was some really good stuff. And if you want more of it, you can go to, if you're watching, I got the book right here. If you're just listening on Spotify or Apple, you can go get his book, How to Lead a Life-Changing Small Group. Where can they find a copy of your book?
At all major outlets.
All major outlets.
I mean, from the marketing plan I saw and what we just talked about a couple of weeks ago. So just so you know, we're just getting this thing out there. So you'll be some of the first people to do that. But you should be able to get it on the normal places you are surfing around, either on the web or right directly from the publishers, offer discounts and things now because it's just coming out. So
Okay.
HarperCollins, Christian. If some of you are more familiar with Zondervan, Zondervan was purchased by HarperCollins. So this is the Christian brand they have, and they do good releases under that. So they'll be promoting it pretty heavily. So they're going to be giving discounts. So that'd be another,
Amazon. It's like everyone's like staple, like, hey, I want to get it like tomorrow.
Sure.
Can I get it tomorrow if I get
Well,
so there's one, and going to the
people
publisher
here at the conference and a few others, we were able to get the first burst out, of print. I mean, it's okay and all. It's just more, I think we're in about a few weeks to get it full. The doors are open and everything is being marketed fully. So anyway, I don't want anybody to go, where is it? Give it a week or two, because we actually got a first print of 100 to 200 just some of that's for the author to be able to give to ministries and do things. Some of it is for a group like this that we're meeting at today. And so anyways,
so I'll say this, those of you who are listening, we have recorded this mid-May at the lobby conference. We were both in person so we could have this. You're watching this right now. The book is now available. By the time this episode's released, the book is available. You can go look for it. You can search it. You'll find it, and you can purchase.
I think so. It's not my fault if it's not. I mean,
yes.
It should be available. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they'll say it's coming in a week, or they'll take your order, or all the things they do to. Yeah. They'll make sure you have access to the book. Yeah.
Someone can take your money. All right. So there you go. It's perfect. Well, again, thank you, Bill, for coming on and sharing your wisdom, insight, just a really, really important frontline ministry.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Adam.
You bet. Well, I hope that was helpful and a blessing to you, audience. As we always say, we don't seek to answer all your questions, but to spur on some good thought trail that you are asking questions you otherwise wouldn't have. And so if you're there and you got some notepad and there's some questions or some things you want to remember, take away from this, I'd encourage you to do that. Bill, if some of our audience want to get in touch with you, you do consulting, you do speaking.
Yeah, sure. Right.
What's the best way for them to get in touch?
The easiest way, as I think of it right now, is they're doing some of that promoting too, but just DRBILL, Dr. Bill Donahue at gmail.com. So you have it. Yeah. If you just Google that or find it, Dr. Bill Donahue at gmail.com. It's probably the best way to start. Yeah.
And we'll put that in the show notes too. So you've got it. And his name's not that hard to spell. So you should be able to get it, but just in case.
But there is a person that does spell it with an O. And some of what they do is not what we would champion. So I'm just, I remember just how quickly, one time I got a phone call, an email with not great language in it about what I said last night on a talk show. Blah, 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 blah. I can't believe you did this. You can think of the right words, fill in the blank, and sends it to me. And I answered back. I said, you got the wrong Bill Donahue. So there's a couple, there's one that's a Bible teacher, I think. And then there was one who's kind of a flamethrower kind of person.
Yeah. So
that's not me. All right, it's just so we're clear.
Send it to the right email. And then write up a prayer and send that to the other one who's not the right one that you meant to, right? So, because they need Jesus anyways, or they're just, need some help. I don't know. But y'all have a great rest of your day. Hope this was helpful. Love you. See you later.